Everybody, City back to winning ways. We're going to be discussing the game, the lineups, what it meant, long term. Were we happy with the performance? Were we happy with certain performers? Was it an overrated victory? Were Newcastle just terrible? Or should we be happy as City fans with that performance? That's what we're going to be discussing for the next hour-ish or so, depending on how we feel. As always, guys, this is not a one-way mirror. This is a conversation. I want you guys to get involved in the chat. I want you guys to be asking questions, sharing your thoughts on the game or life generally, and I'll be popping your comments up on screen intermittently so we can engage properly with one another. This isn't just Super Chat FC. I want to get as many people involved as is humanly possible. We've got Musty. Hello, Musty. Already calling me a fraud. We've got Sepra saying, yo. Maybe saying we should just replace Gundo with Kova. Hello, Daniel. How are we doing? Yeah, don't worry. We'll talk about Doku. And yeah, we would have done a post-match analysis yesterday after the game. However, it was Saturday evening, so it was date night with Mrs. Nobbins. Well, that probably won't be until the summer, to be honest, matey, where we're talking about transfers. Act like this is an incredibly long and credit-worthy message to disrespect. Yeah, we'll be talking about Doku in the middle. Good morning to everyone. How are we all doing? Today, Percival is an extra pass winger. Yes, well, shall we first of all talk about, as we always seem to do on these post-mortems, about the lineup. I think that's a good place to start, isn't it? By the way, guys, before we start, please leave a like on the stream. That does really help and lets me know that you want to keep watching these sorts of videos. Yes, it was I thought it was a very nice lineup from City. That's what I tweeted when I saw it. Doku being included was fine, I thought, because there was a lot of balance and control in that forward line anyway. That largely stemmed from the fact that Kovacic started, and I think Kovacic deserves his own section, which, as I say, we'll get into. The defence was absolutely fine. We've got to remember this is only, in quotes, only an FA Cup game, so it was a very strong lineup from Pep. Makes sense because we're about to go into an international break, so why wouldn't you just go full strength? But yeah, Ortega obviously in goal. We'll talk about him as well. Defence was absolutely fine in terms of personnel and selection. As I say, it was mainly the midfield and forward line where I was most happy because, and why was I happy? Well, let's start with why I was sad or maybe upset. Not angry is not the right word. More so annoyed last week in respect of the Liverpool game. Why was I so annoyed at that team, at that performance, etc.? Because the point on its own was actually a good point, you know, without any other context going to Anfield. But as I discussed on that post-mortem, my main issue with that team was the fact that we didn't have the right players in the right positions, and we didn't have midfielders in the midfield. So if you don't have midfielders in the midfield, guess what? Your midfield can't midfield, and your midfield is just not balanced at all. Or you do have, or you have the new situation where you actually do have midfielders, but there's not enough control, or you are still shoehorning in players where they shouldn't fit. Against Anfield, it was a left wing, obviously. Still drifting sometimes inside into midfield as well. And that was a big issue for me. I could understand the logic. And I've seen on Twitter people's theories as to why it happened, and I don't disagree with why Alvarez started that game in terms of the combinations he was able to make on the left. I don't disagree with the notion of that. However, I think that is a tool that should be utilized from a state of control, i.e., it's easier to start with control and go into more chaos than vice versa at Anfield, if that makes sense. It's better to have those sorts of players on the bench to bring on if needed. Yeah? So that's why I was happy that Kovacic started against Newcastle. And the title of this video is all about control, control, control. And this is a word that it's been used to death this season and last season, but with good reason. Yesterday, for me, again, we'll get on to whether Newcastle are actually good or not. For me, that game was very reminiscent to a game that we'd see last season, or very small glimpses in this season, in that City had total authority and say on the play, on the chances, on the goals, obviously, on defending chances, limited Newcastle to essentially nothing. And that the defence looked solid, and that all stems from a solid base, and as I say, of control. If the midfield is stable, the defence subsequently will look stable. A lot of people have asked this season, why is our defence just shat an absolute brick? Why is he shat an absolute brick? Why has the defence shat an absolute brick this season? And sure, there have been some weird individual errors, but a lot of that is because of the lack of stability in midfield. If you don't have a good midfield in front of you, your defence is subsequently going to suffer. That's like happened countless times. Like when Liverpool lost like Fabinho for portions, when like City lost Fernandinho, etc. In like Rodri's first season, that happens to the defence subsequently. So that's why I think we looked so much better. And there is a poll going on in this video. Let me know, and also let me know in the replay in the comments. Is Kovacic's cameo against Liverpool and his game yesterday against Newcastle, were they good enough to warrant him starting every single big game from now on? So knockout Champions League games, home against Arsenal, away against Spurs. Let me know in the live chat right now if you're here. Let me know in the comments if you're not here live right now, because I'm of the view that yes, Kovacic should basically be starting every single big game. I thought he should have started at Anfield. That wasn't even a case of hindsight. That was just a case of, well, that should have happened. And when he came on, we saw why he should have started. Currently, in this sort of weird transitional season with City, where we haven't quite properly replaced our absentees, and there have also been injury issues, but every team has injury issues, so whatever. I think it's just pretty obvious that he should be starting, to be honest, every single big game, as I say. Let me now just catch up on the chat. Real Madrid is going to be scary. So John, and again, Real Madrid, Kovacic, should he be starting against the likes of Real Madrid? We're the first English side to be in FA Cup semi-final 6 seasons in a row. That is crazy. Pep scrap needed. What does that mean, Bailey? A word about Bob. Yeah, we'll talk about Bob, don't you worry. Real talk indeed. Doku's elements of excellence, and yeah, we'll have a whole section on Jeremy. Don't you worry about that. What will our midfield look like in the best 11? Says John. Well, again, it depends on the game, for sure. However, I think it definitely has either at least one of Grealish or Kovacic in it. If Grealish isn't available, there is no doubt in my mind that Kovacic must be starting. If Grealish is available, it's maybe not as necessary in every single big game or every single sort of like medium to high game. But certainly, if only one of them is available, at least one of them must start. This isn't working against good teams. Sure, we can dominate weak Newcastle against big teams. We look much more toothless. But Daniel, that's the thing. That's the thing. We haven't seen that team against the bigger sides. We've seen either like Kovacic not start or a striker shoehorned in. That's the thing. We haven't actually seen it. We've had the chance to see it, but for some reason Guardiola hasn't selected it often enough. So the Arsenal game, that lineup is going to be very telling, I think. Smoker Pap says Kovacic for away games, not for every home game, depending on the opponent. Bailey says he's currently ahead of Grealish, could change, has a very good relationship with Gvardiol as well. Yeah, and if you play Kovacic, it does mean that it's probably more optimal to play Gvardiol, who again I think deserves maybe his own little section, because he's obviously more offensive, ball-playing defender, left back, left wing back, whatever, than Ake. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Ake's costs against Wolves, Arsenal, and Liverpool, Spurs as well. To be fair, like Spurs, I've got to ask questions of why didn't he get up for that was it a Brennan Johnson cross? Just like we're patient with Grealish in his first season, no reason why we shouldn't do the same with Doku Musty. Yeah, I totally do agree with that. So if Kovacic plays and De Bruyne fit, do both play, then who do you leave out, Bernardo or Doku? Or Grealish? If Grealish is available, look, specifically for the Arsenal game, if Grealish and Kovacic are available, I think they both start. Especially with De Bruyne's injury tweak, I think you've got to ask the question of whether he starts or whether you bring him on sort of like in the 70th minute sort of thing. There's no reason to rush him back if he does have that slight tweak. I'd rather was like we saw against Anfield. At Anfield, Pep said that he was carrying a bit of a knock, and De Bruyne wasn't good on that pitch. So I think that in that situation, it probably makes more sense to bring him on with like sort of like 30 minutes left, as Liverpool did with Salah. He wasn't fully fit. He came on. He does one bit of brilliance and nearly gets an assist. So maybe something like that. Pep's good to be seen. Every big team that's been weakened, he's gone weaker. The back four last time was the most played combo this season. Not the best one. Normally would say that's the best performance. Bailey, I think that's a good point, to be fair. Everyone knows that Walker wouldn't be in my starting 11. Certain games he should start. But yeah, I thought we were defensively solid. I thought we were defensively solid yesterday. Musty, you little troll. That Alvarez 10 against Arsenal is going to hit like crack. You are such a little fraudster. I swear. Guys, please make sure you're leaving a like on the video if you are enjoying the video. Daniel, I think with Gvardiol, it depends on the game, to be honest. What I would say on Gvardiol is he's made less errors leading to goals than Ake this season. That is what I would say. Maybe I'm sure Ake's played more minutes, but you do see my point. For Gvardiol, I can only really think of. Well, sorry, then when there was the Chelsea mistake where he just like didn't clear it, and there was the West Ham one where he just like didn't close down the cross. Outside of that, I can't think of too many, to be fair. Certainly in terms of high profile ones, in games where we've dropped points, Ake's definitely made more. Let's not say Ake's been bad at all. But yeah, so that's Kovacic. And let's now talk about Gvardiol, shall we? And what Gvardiol being on the pitch allows City to do, and subsequently what he allows Doku to do. And whether that's something that we should be experimenting with for the remainder of the season. So when I saw the lineups, I was interested, and I think I tweeted out saying that it would be interesting to see if we go back to the 2-3 shape that we actually first saw this season against Newcastle, of all teams, at St James's Park. If you've seen my analysis video on that, hopefully you have, about Pep's new 2-3-5 shape and system this season. The way that's created is Gvardiol goes to left wing back, Walker goes to right wing back. So you got the two centre backs. Like yesterday, it would have been a Diaz and Kanji as the two centre backs, and then the three ahead of them is Rodri, Bernardo, Kovacic, and some variation therein, and then the five ahead of them are those two wing backs and the remaining midfielders and the forwards. It's a very aggressive system, and it is something that we can only really do when Gvardiol's on the pitch. Ake is not that guy in respect of he's not the best from Gvardiol's not the best from a creative standpoint, but certainly on the ball, Ake is not that to a further degree. As I say, it can only really work when Gvardiol's on the pitch, and I really liked it. What it does, it pins the opposition back, because you're obviously committing loads more bodies forwards. So it does work really well against sides who you want to pin back, i.e. a Newcastle, who have pacey counter-attacking threats like Gordon, Isak, etc., those sorts of players. It's also useful when the opposition plays like a back five, as Newcastle did yesterday, all their players back. So what you want to do is you want to outnumber them. So if you've got more bodies further up the pitch, you can more easily outnumber them. And finally, maybe the most exciting factor is because you've got Gvardiol playing left wing, it means that whoever is that left centre midfielder or whoever, they can go, or left winger, sorry, they can go into left centre midfield. So we've seen it happen with Foden this season. Most excitingly for me, we've seen it happen with Grealish this season. That Spurs game was the first time. Wasn't the 2-3 shape, but Gvardiol was pushed up to left wing at times. That allowed Grealish to play in the middle. But against Newcastle at St James's allowed Doku to do it. And it allowed Doku to do it yesterday as well. That's why Doku was able to float in and around these really central zones and areas. It's a really interesting thing. Whether Doku's ready to do that, I'm still not 100% convinced. However, people have alluded to it in the chat. I thought yesterday was probably Doku's best game in the City shirt. Certainly from a maturity standpoint, he's still not making the right decisions all the time. There are still like certain issues there, obviously. Like there was one where City were 3-on-2 and Foden was to his right, Haaland was to his left, and Doku just has to slip in Haaland, who then would then be able to take a touch and then hit it on his stronger left foot. Instead, he waits, he tries to find Foden, but then he doesn't even get the pass right. His shooting also does need to improve. His final pass needs to improve, but the signs were there, and it was really promising in that respect from a Doku performance. I still wouldn't play him in the bigger games, of course. Look, he's still not ready for that. It is still his first season. Remember, like, first season Grealish wasn't great. He was fine. It wasn't great. But it was promising. I think that's the right word. And he did look a massive threat. And when you've got one of the best dribblers, well, objectively, the best dribbler in Europe, picking up central zones where he's able to go... Because if you think about a winger, they can only really go one direction, to be honest. Like, sure, you can go down the touchline to the left, but in terms of, like, threatening at the box, you can only really go to the right if you're starting on the left. Whereas if you're in the middle, you can go left or right. So he becomes more of a two-way dribbling threat, if that's the case. I thought we saw that to great effect. I thought he played well. I'd be really interested to hear what you guys have to say on Doku, because there was a lot of conflicting thoughts in my watch-along chat. Lots of people saying he's rubbish, that he's too wasteful, that he just shouldn't be starting at all, that they weren't impressed with the performance. I thought he played well yesterday, to be honest. Bailey says Doku's an attacking sub. Rotated between cities will be an asset. 100% Bailey. He's certainly not ready to start the biggest games. He shouldn't be starting the biggest games. I don't want to see him start against Arsenal, for example, but he's certainly a player who can come off the bench and have an impact for sure. Kanji right back. You say, yeah, I would definitely have a Kanji over Walker in most instances. With sport for choice of defenders, everyone gets slandered at this point. I don't really get that, to be fair, because, I mean, there's been a lot of, like, Ruben Diaz slander, and I think that, look, the first few months of the season, he struggled, 100%, but since then, he's been very, very good, and basically the levels that we associate with Ruben Diaz. I actually think that he's sort of getting overhated. I'm not quite sure why. Worst player of the season has been Kyle Walker. The best has been Phil Foden for me. Who's a more creative player, Stones or Manu? So that's a really interesting question. I feel like Stones is certainly more assured on the ball, but in terms of like those final actions, the answer might be a Kanji, to be honest. Like, do you remember that left-footed, so with his weak foot pass, which just played Doku imperfectly around the defender? It was fantastic. I do think that Akanji is one of our best defenders. Like, genuinely, he is terrifying how good he is. Kovacic starting is great, but if you also start Doku, it's one step forward, two step back. Add control, also add total lack of control. Well, you do. Well, that's the thing, Daniel. You need a balance, and this is why the Anfield game failed, because there was no balance in that starting 11. Because there was one player you'd associate with having that control, and that was Bernardo Silva, who has not really been playing that well recently. I know he scored 2 deflected goals yesterday, but he's not been playing that well recently. Whereas yesterday we had Kovacic. And we had defenders as wingers, so it was much more balanced in that respect. So they can definitely coexist, and they need to coexist, because you need control, you need chaos. It's not enough to. You don't want to go too far the other way. As I say, there needs to be a middle ground between the two. Herbal says Kova's amazing for games when we need control and possession. He's maybe not suited for breaking down low blocks. Yeah, Herbal. It depends on the game. Totally depends on the game. 100%. If you're playing Arsenal away, you start Kovacic. If you're playing Burnley at home, you probably don't play Kovacic. It's give and take, isn't it? Which plays the biggest threat from Arsenal? Martinelli on the wings. I mean, Ødegaard seems to be in the form of his life, so I'd probably say him, to be honest. Was at the game, at no point were we out of control we're winning that game and get 100%, Jimmy. And I think that's a really good point, because again, lots of people were saying, you know, our attack looks blunt. Why aren't we battering teams? You know, we're not creating enough. We've got to remember game state. Yes. If City don't score those, so people were saying, well, what happens if we don't score those 2 deflected goals? We didn't really create anything. If we don't score those 2 deflected goals, then the game changes totally from a how we approach perspective. When we scored the second goal, as Jimmy says here quite rightly, we just basically switched off, and we're like, right, well, the game's now in our hands. Absolutely, let's not waste any energy. It's not like we're in the league, so goal difference is irrelevant. Let's not pick up any silly bookings or you know, suspend or red cards or injuries, and let's just see this game through. And I think the word is professional. I think that's what you're after. It was a very professional performance once those goals went in. And again, if those goals didn't go in, then the game totally changes, and we do actually go out and attack, and we do go out to seek you know, a winning goal or a goal to kill off the game. But as it was, we didn't need to, because we scored those 2 goals. So I was really happy with the performance, to be honest. No, that is, yeah, Daniel, I did allude to that, yeah. Look, there's no doubt that Doku needs to improve, but he is 21. It's his first season. He shouldn't be starting these bigger games. It's not his fault he starts these bigger games if he does indeed start them. Yeah, Newcastle fans normally are very good, aren't they? A Doku game for us against Bournemouth is the worst thing that could happen to him. Yeah, it probably did change the perception of him, to be fair. Kovac and Grealish both should start. Yeah, for me, it depends on the game. Manu could be our best right back. He's played pacey Bayern and played left back against Roger. And he also played left back against Saka at times last season, I'm pretty sure, as well. So yeah, he is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, hit the like, guys, if you are enjoying it. That would I'd really appreciate that. I've got around 100-ish people watching, which is fantastic for like a Sunday morning analysing an FA Cup game. So thank you guys so much for joining me and helping this channel grow. City will have their match against Spurs postponed for the FA Cup. Yeah, so that's probably going to go to the last game of the season, isn't it? Yeah, that's the one, Akanji. And I saw Akanji at left back. I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? And yeah, he absolutely pocketed him last season at 100%. So that's sort of like the overall state of affairs. Let's before we like touch on more like City players and sort of like, you know, whether this is a blueprint for how to approach bigger games in the season. Let's touch on like Newcastle, our opposition, for a bit. Because as good as City were in respect of, as I say, being totally stable and having all the authority and say in the game, considering that Newcastle, that game was Newcastle's season, they're out of Europe. They're obviously not in the League Cup because that's done. They're out of any sort of Premier League title, you know, top 4 race or race for Europe. In fact, let's just check. Where are they in the table? They're 10th, so they've got 40 points. So what even is their season? Like qualifying for like the Conference League, maybe, which is like whatever. So this was their season, the FA Cup, and they were like toothless and spineless to an extent. They'd set up incredibly defensively. We've touched on the back 5 situation, and every time they came forward, outside of that one Ortega save, they didn't seem threatening at all. It didn't feel like the St. James's Park performance. I know it's St. James's Park, but every time they came forward that game, they seemed to be causing genuine problems for City. They came forward with authority and threat, as I say, but there just wasn't any of that yesterday. Now, what do you guys think? Was that just because City, as I say, stunted them and made them nothing in attack? Or was it just sort of like an amalgamation of like Newcastle and sort of like a personification of their season, in that we've got to the stage now where like all the injuries are piling up. They've just ran out of steam, maybe. They tried to do too much too quickly. Yeah, I just thought it was a really weird performance from Newcastle. I expected so much more. Isak's touch was terrible. You go into some half decent positions, but then he just absolutely shafted himself by just not getting the ball out of his feet, for example. It was a really weird performance from Newcastle. Their defense, which is normally so solid, I know we only scored 2, but they just kept giving us chance after chance. It was a very weird performance from them, to be honest. How far apart are the times if it's morning there? It is currently 11:40 in the morning, matey. 11:40. They could get top 8, says Musty, maybe, for sure. Or take it, even if he leaves the guys owned the FA Cup, we get Coventry and we make the finals. Yay. Well, who else are... So we've got Coventry, we've got Man City. We're probably going to see Chelsea, probably, who are playing Leicester at home today. Leicester aren't bad, but it is at Stamford Bridge, and Leicester are at the end of the day a championship side. And then again, probably Liverpool. Who do you guys want in the semi-final? Do you want Coventry, who are the weakest team, for an easy route to the final? Or do you actually want... Do you want to be like, right, well, the winner of Liverpool United, I really don't want to win the FA Cup, so I'd rather we draw them now so that we have the final say in terms of making sure they don't reach the final. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Do you just want the easier draw, or do you want to actually say, no, Liverpool must not win the FA Cup, United must not win the FA Cup, we need to try to beat them in the semi-final stage? 99% sure we're going to get the winner of United and Liverpool. Me personally, I just want the easier fixture, to be honest, because this title running is crazy. It was crazy last season as well, but the title was wrapped up. We played Sheffield United in the semi-final. So I'd like to see something similar. United and Chelsea, Coventry in the final. Can you even imagine? Hey up, Rob. How you doing, mate? Coventry, of course, let's be honest, Wembley's not as much a home game as it would be going to Anfield. Hey, there's a reason to call it the Etihad South, mate. Man City imposed their plan on Newcastle within 30 minutes. The recent back 3 got yellow cards. Well, they certainly should have got more yellows. That is for sure. And yeah, Rob, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're enjoying the stream, please leave a like on the video. It's so good to see so many people for a morning after the day FA Cup stream. What are the City players shall we talk about? So we've touched on Gvardiol, we've touched on how that impacts Doku. Kovacic has obviously been the main talking point. We haven't even talked about Phil Foden, who was once again imperious in a midfield position and role. I'm just sort of like repeating myself at this point when it comes to Foden. Didn't get a goal or an assist. Didn't get a goal or an assist yesterday, but some of the stuff he does in the middle of the park is just absolutely, it is just ridiculous. That turn in particular, where I know it didn't lead to anything, but it's just majestic football to watch. Even if it doesn't lead to anything, it is just really pretty to watch. Oh, Oscar Bob, we'll touch on Oscar Bob, absolutely. I think maybe Ortega might be the sort of next port of call. I think Ortega is a very good shot stopper. Very good shot stopper. You could make an argument to say he's actually maybe better than Ederson for sure. Certainly based on the little I've seen of Ortega, he does seem to be able to pull off trickier saves than Ederson, that's for sure. It's not, I feel like it's not often I see like, you know, Ederson pull off a world-class save. He's still capable of doing it, but I feel like Ortega does it more consistently. So I totally get fans' optimism, and IFL says Ortega is an upgrade. I would beware that notion. There was one moment in the game yesterday, for example, Ortega pulled off a brilliant save, but the reason he had to pull off that save was because he gave the ball away in the build-up, and it was quite an easy bit of build-up to do. It wasn't like he was under any pressure. I'm very happy he's our backup, and I'd say he's the best backup in the league, of course. And he'd get into like, I don't know, around like 10-ish Premier League teams. That's how good he is. But Ederson is, and it's the same way that Grealish is vital to how we play. Ederson is vital to how we play, certainly in respect of build-up. We are going to, I suspect, against Arsenal, for example, we are going to see opposition teams much more willing to press us high up the pitch. The reason why a lot of teams don't do that is because it's a wasted exercise for the most part, because Ederson is like an outfield player on the ball most of the time. And obviously you're going to get outnumbered because the keeper is there. So, again, we can be happy that Ortega is a very good backup and is a very good shot stopper and is not bad at distributing. I'm not saying he's bad, but he's certainly at least a tier below Ederson, maybe 2 tiers below in respect of that. Junanis, thank you so much for following the channel. So it will be interesting to see how the likes of Arsenal, approach that weakness. I think weakness is probably the right word from a build-up and distribution perspective. Anyway, it does mean I think we're going to have to maybe double down on our best ball-playing defenders in those bigger games. I don't think it's not going to happen, but for example, like Walker shouldn't be playing. Like I think Akanji is better on the ball than Walker, for example. Obviously, Stones is going to play every single game. It might mean that we see Gvardiol more in those defenses against the bigger sides, because he's much better on the ball than Ake. And as we've discussed, it allows us to get the left winger into midfield. So I don't agree it's an upgrade. I think it's a blessing that we've got a player of Ortega's quality and caliber to be our backup keeper. But I'm not buzzing about it. Lots of people are happy that he's going to be our starting keeper for however long. I agree that sometimes Ederson can be reckless, like against Liverpool. I know Ake made the mistake, but Ederson also did make that mistake. But it's all about net gain. Is Ederson a net positive, in respect to his build? And the answer is yes, because he's vital to how we play. But again, Ortega isn't a bad alternative. Of course, he's not. Musty predicted me. Yes, a little bit worried about Ortega. If Arsenal opt to press us high. To be fair, if they do opt to press us high, we could just fall back on the strategy we used last season at the Etihad, where we just pump it up to Haaland, to be fair. And that would actually maybe play to our strengths of just being a bit more direct in that respect. The semi-final draw is after the Liverpool United game, mate. Vinny, Tchouaméni, Bellingham are 1 yellow away from... Yes, that's absolutely right, Colin. Grealish must be available to start that game. We need to make Bellingham rattled. Absolutely. Hello, Terrell. How are you doing, mate? Not related to the game. Musiala was unreal yesterday. We'd love to see him at the Etihad next season, says Harry. I do like Musiala. I do love watching him, but I don't want him at City. My opinion on Gvardiol, I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, we discussed him earlier in the stream, Jonks. Thought he was really good. Again, allows Doku to play in the centre, or Foden or Doku or whoever is playing at that left wing spot. As I will discuss in my summer transfer video, that is an area of the pitch we do need to change, because at the end of the day, it's not ideal to have a centre-back at left wing in those crossing positions. So that is certainly an area of the pitch we need to change, and I've got an idea of who I think we should be signing in an ideal world. Some of our front five players are weak as water. Gosh, that's harsh. Ederson also lost the ball under pressure. If it has happened, I think it's happened like twice, to be honest, Daniel. The point being that he's obviously a much better distributor for sure. Ortega's better 1v1. Sure, Ederson is the better shooter indeed. Yes. Big up to Hellboy, and yeah, big up everyone in the chat. If Liverpool win against you, I hope they get you in the semis, because I think it would be harder than in the final, potentially. Wakanji. Yeah, Kanji was man of the match. Definitely. Absolute rock. And I'll say it again. I feel like I'm repeating myself. He should be starting. He should be starting every single big game, in my view, at right back. Absolutely. No Musiala, even Wirtz. We have Phil. Yeah, I totally agree. We don't need Wirtz or Musiala. In my opinion, they would be wasted at City. They'd probably be better used at their current clubs or at another club if they opt to move. Oscar Bob looked really good when he came on. I do think that if it is a question of Grealish is out again and who we're playing on the left, I just think Bob should probably play at this point in those bigger games. He just looks so assured. He makes the right decisions. He makes the right actions when he drives through the centre. That is the best form of Bob, because he is actually a central player rather than Doku, who's obviously a wide player. So if we're playing a system where the wide player goes to the centre, for me, it makes more sense to have a central player fill that void, i.e. Foden or Oscar Bob. And yeah, he looked really good when he came on. And it's so good to see him getting lots of minutes this season and proving himself. He's going to be a fixture in this Man City side for however many years because he's just going to go from strength to strength. Yeah. So Sarim, I like the concept in that it allows our left winger to play in the middle, but the issue fundamentally is he's not a wing back; he's a centre back. We need an attacking left back. You know, that's what we need to be able to play at left wing back. That's a sort of that's the profile, that's the role, that's the position that we need to look at hitting in the summer if this is the future. And as I touched on in my Foden De Bruyne video, I talked about how I liked the idea of the left back going to left wing. And, you know, I'm not trying to say that I am Pep. However, I said that the day before we did it against Newcastle. That's all I'm going to say. Go watch the date that video came out. It happened before the Newcastle game where we saw it properly for the first time. So for me, that is the play, and I guess it just surprises me. It makes the last summer's transfer window even more confusing. Why didn't we get an offensive fullback if this was the vision or the idea to play Foden De Bruyne in the middle? Why, if the idea was to do a 3-2 shape with like Walker as the right winger, why didn't we go out and get an actual attacking fullback? Confusing o'clock. Bruno Guimaraes looking yummy. Release clause FC. What lineup do you think Pep should start against Arsenal? Asks Darshil. So let's assume that all our outfield players are back fully fit for argument's sake. Oh no, actually maybe we shouldn't. Well, Ortega's in goal. Yeah. So let's say we're doing the 3-2 shape. As much as I've talked about Gvardiol, I still think you need Ake to... I don't think Saka's not been particularly good this season. However, he is still a very good player and he can still be a threat, similar to Salah. So I do still think that maybe Ake should be starting. So I probably have Akanji, Diaz, Ake at the back three, Rodri and Stones in the midfield. Obviously Haaland up top. It's just a case of that sort of like front four is the question. Grealish must start. Kovacic must start. So it's a question of, and Foden must start. So it's a question of, do you drop Bernardo or Kevin De Bruyne, who might be better as more of an impact player? Do you go for total control, or is that actually too much the other way? I think it's probably too much the other way. I'd probably drop Bernardo Silva. Yeah, there you go. That's probably what I would do. Or if De Bruyne isn't fully fit and at it, I'd bring on De Bruyne in sort of like the 60th, 70th minute. It depends on the fitness of De Bruyne. If he's fully fit, I'd drop Bernardo. If he isn't fully fit, start Bernardo, bring on De Bruyne with like 30-ish minutes to go. I think that would be fine. And then you can rotate De Bruyne and Foden if De Bruyne starts, or if Bernardo starts, you can just have Bernardo on the right outright and Foden in the middle outright. And hello, Tony, who's been an ultra longer than anyone, hence the golden rat badge. Thank you so much, Tony. Drops over and play De Bruyne again. That could be a potential. Bernardo's arguably our best big game player. Yeah, and that's why it's a tricky decision, to be fair, but he's not been playing particularly well in recent weeks. So it depends on a lot of things, doesn't it? It depends on the fitness, because again, for Arsenal specifically, Grealish must start. Kovacic must start. Foden has to start because he's been our best player. So it's a toss-up. Do you start Kevin or do you start Bernardo Silva? I might be leaning more towards starting Bernardo and bringing on Kevin as an impact, given that slight groin injury. Potential. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Attacking left back, indeed. Yeah, Wolves are fun. We're coming for your left back, says Bailey. I know who I want. I've decided now, I think. I like to think Kovacic should start the big games. Yeah, 100% totally agree. Cancelo was great at attacking. Yeah, but he's done. His bridges have been burnt at City. And also, to be fair with Cancelo, he was very good attacking, but he didn't really impact the play out wide as much. He was more so like a creator from those central zones, wasn't he? Like when he would invert. This is why he and Grealish never really worked that well, because Grealish worked better with an overlapping fullback, whereas Cancelo was much more, he wanted to play in those more central areas. So I actually don't know if Cancelo, even if that bridge wasn't burnt, I don't think he's the right player anyway. In fact, I remember seeing Cancelo at right wing a few times in the season last season, and he was bad. Do you guys remember? Do you guys remember the Chelsea game? I think it was in a cup. He was terrible. Thank you so much for the super chat, Rio, which has activated my Fraudiola filter. Why is Gvardiol struggling? I don't think he's been struggling, Rio. To be fair, I think he's been very good for the most part. If we're saying why has he not been perfect, it's because he's 21, 22 years old in a totally new league and is being tasked with a lot of on-ball burden. But I don't agree he's been struggling. Thank you so much for the super chat. But yeah, I don't agree he's been struggling. SGD, what is that currency? Let me know. I've never seen that before. Thank you so much, mate. KDB plays great against Arsenal every single time, 100% Tony, but we can't risk him getting a worse injury, so it totally depends on the groin situation. It all depends on De Bruyne's groin. Never thought I'd be saying that. Singapore. Oh, that's sick, Rio. Thank you so much for that. Grealish still needs time to get his match fitness back. I wouldn't rush him against Arsenal. I guess that's a question as well. If Grealish isn't fully fit, then this doesn't really become a question. But if he is available and fit, then he must start, absolutely. Draw for the FA Cup is after the Liverpool United game. Is Alphonso Davies an option? That sort of ilk, he's not the player I want, but that is certainly the sort of player we need. He seems destined to go to Real Madrid. But that is definitely the sort of player we need. We need a left back who is comfortable playing as a left wing back with the ball and basically just being a really offensive player. We need someone who's very good at crossing the ball as well. Ideally, we also need someone who's comfortable at left centre back because utility and versatility is a thing. So what we need is a left-footed left back who is comfortable defending in a back four as a left back, also comfortable as a left centre back, and has got a wicked cross on him and is very good offensively and going forwards and basically playing as a left winger when we have the ball. That is the sort of player that we need, in my opinion, on that left side. On the right side, we've got Walker there, who isn't, brilliant at it, but he can do it. We've also got a certain player currently on loan at Girona, who I think would be a very decent option there as well. Not as a first choice, because I think the left side should be that go-to area, but that right side could be a potential as well. Cancelo Zinchenko, in my flawed opinion. Certainly in terms of defending their duels, that's for sure. Why not drop Haaland? I thought he was very, very good yesterday. Body language is terrible. I don't see that, to be honest. I don't see that at all. Gonna watch Chelsea Leicester. It says, I've got a family function later. I would normally be doing a watch-along on this channel. However, there's a family function going on. DeMarco, love the idea of DeMarco. However, he's not a left back. He's a left wing back. That's my only query on that. Is he comfortable? How good and comfortable is he defending in a back four? There's no doubt he can do the offensive work, because I thought he was Inter's best player in that Champions League final. But yeah, my question is that off-ball defending in a back four with DeMarco. Holland looked tired. I don't know. I think that I think that I thought it was very good yesterday. To be honest, I thought his link up and build up was fantastic. I thought it was fantastic. Hello, Jack. How you doing? Will Haaland ever win the Ballon d'Or at City? Well, should have won it last time, shouldn't he? There's no. He definitely can. He definitely can. Whether he will is another question. We've got 150 people watching on a morning post FA Cup stream. Thank you guys so much for the support. Please leave a like on the stream because the likes are free and they really do help me. Do you see Arsenal, Liverpool dropping any points in the remaining 10 games? Yeah. All teams are going to drop points. I don't think that... Let's take the Arsenal City game out of it just for one moment. Whatever happens there. Every single team is going to drop at least 2 points. I'm very convinced of that. I'd be staggered if every team went perfect in like the last 9 to 10 games. That would be pretty remarkable if that were to happen. It definitely can happen, but I'd be very, very dubious of predicting that to happen for sure. I'm sure every side is going to drop at least 2 points. I'm pretty sure on that. I don't know when exactly, that's the thing, but the games might come in games we don't expect. For example, I know they didn't drop points, but away against Forest, I don't think anyone would have predicted Liverpool to drop points that game. And again, I know they didn't, but they probably should have done. Thank you so much, Darshaw, for the really kind words at the end there. Yes, his game is quality. Docker needs to work on finishing 100. Yeah, 100%. And that will come. That will come with time. The issue is this season we don't have time, so he just shouldn't be. Jack. Yeah, but Jack, there'll be explanations as well, so don't worry about it. And again, there is one player who I've not mentioned to anyone, nor will I ever until it comes out. And I've not seen anyone talk about him for any team, to be honest. Maybe that's with good reason. Maybe he's shit. Oh, dear. We have Ake and Pep with Yoshko. Herbal, indeed. But if we are going more towards this attacking left-sided situation, the natural evolution of that is to get an attacking left-back. It has to be. And I think that maybe that's why Pep was so desperate to keep Walker this season. I think that maybe that was Pep's... because I said before, why didn't we go for an attacking fullback in the summer if the idea was to do that? And maybe that's why he was so desperate to keep Walker. Maybe the idea for this season was he wanted to continue with the treble winning system, you know, with Stones going into midfield, but intermittently he wanted to experiment with the fullback going to right wing. But he didn't want to, splash out like 50 to 70 million pounds on a player and then it not work. So maybe the idea was that Walker will, as an experiment, will be that guy. But because of Stones' injury concerns this season, he was forced to rely on that system a little bit more. And hence we saw the Walker issues. Maybe that's the correlation. Maybe that's the thing. I'm not 100% on that, but that might make some sense. City last day winner, anyone? Caceres City don't just win trophies but set records when rivals accept us as a big club. We are the 4th biggest club in England. Like, I'm sorry, that's objective. We have eclipsed Chelsea in every single metric, essentially. We've been bigger than Spurs for a while. Of course, we're not bigger than the big 3. We're bigger than Everton for a while. Yeah, there is no argument for me that we aren't the 4th biggest club, to be honest. The only thing Chelsea had on us was the fact that they had the Champions League, which we now have. There is nothing that they have which we don't. Oh, they've got more. They've got one more. We've got like 4 more league titles. We've got more trophies. We've got every other metric is in our favour. So yeah. Pep's niche formations, we are finished. If the next manager says, Mustard, we need someone in the same ilk, that's for sure. To say Docker isn't clinical enough when most of our players are not clinical, kind of mad, I'd say he would need to keep his performance that way more consistent and the goals will come. Of course they will. Of course they will. No, Taylor, I've not watched the overlap, to be honest. Gasky, I think, went to one of their recordings, though. My podcast partner. Because Cancelo's more creative in the middle zones. Kundam, when he was played at right wing last season, he didn't like it. He couldn't do it, to be honest. Why is Lewis's role so less this season? Good question. I don't know. I'd like to see him a bit more. He's still what, 18 years old at the end of the day. So we need to chill out in terms of expecting him to be too much. Yeah, well, Daniel, those people are idiots, aren't they? Like, it's just boring. I'm getting so bored of, like, engaging with those people online. Every time I tweet about it, you get people who just don't know what they're talking about come out of the woodwork. And it's like, you're just, like, you're just broadcasting that you don't know anything about the topic. It's just sad, man. Yeah, Musty. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Don't worry. I have my logic and I will explain myself. I will explain myself, don't you worry. He's 20. Yeah, but he's still a baby. You get me, Jack? He is still a child. He is still a baby. So there we go. Anything else to touch on with the Newcastle game? Because we have been live for around an hour, so I think we'll be going for another like 10 minutes or so. So if you guys have got any more questions for me, keep them coming in. I do like how we start with the game and then it sort of devolves just into like me engaging with the chat and doing a Q&A. I do like that a lot. Anything else specifics I want to touch on in regards to the game? Haaland really liked his build-up and link-up play. We've touched on Gvardiol, Doku. Yeah. We didn't talk about Foden. We didn't really talk about Foden at all. Once again, just a brilliant performance from him, starting out and out, not even being a false winger, just starting from midfield out and out. Well, technically being the striker without the ball, but then going into midfield. The purest form of like him playing in the 10 as you can get. You won't get that when De Bruyne is on the pitch. He's probably got to play as a false winger, but that's absolutely fine. And yeah, it was just fantastic, wasn't it? Another game, another bit of green I get to add to the Foden starting chart, and more evidence, if it was ever needed, that I hope that we're sort of getting a bit of a cult here, the Foden midfield cult. Let's call it that. I feel like I've been a very early proponent of this. And it's just so good to see that every time it happens, he plays well. No one here can name one game where Foden played in midfield and he was bad in that game. The worst you can come up with is probably the Crystal Palace game when he gave away the penalty, but it wasn't bad that game because of his midfield play. He was very good that day. It's just further proponents. They're in. No, Musty. Some people do. I've spoken to them. Some people think the left wing is his best position. Or they don't think it's a bigger deal. When it clearly is. Mohamed, for me, we need to replicate him in the form of two players. Has he been the best player in the world? The world is too far. I think. I don't claim to watch La Liga. But most people would say Bellingham, probably. I've watched Bellingham's Champions League games. I think it's been all right. I think Foden's been better. But I've not watched Bellingham in La Liga, so I'll defer to people who have watched him, and they say he's been the best. So I'll just assume they're right, to be honest, because I don't want to argue. Yeah, must. Yeah, spoilers, that is the thing that has changed. Did it surprise you how much Newcastle players dropped off in the second half? Yeah, Bailey, 100%. We were talking about it earlier. Like, this was their season. The Newcastle season, quite frankly, is over now. The best you can hope for is like getting Europa League football or Conference League football. Like, your season's done. This was your chance to do something. And yeah, it was bad. Again, I know that we were very good and we stunted them, etc. But Newcastle were poor. If us and Madrid finish top 2 in the group stage next season, we can only meet Madrid in the final. Well, it's not group stages anymore, is it? That's changed. I don't think KDB will go now. It depends on the game, Josh. That's the thing. It depends on the game. There's not inherently an issue with Foden playing as a winger, by the way. There is an issue with him playing as a touchline winger. There's a big difference there. And I'm convinced it's not how the opposition set up against us. It is how we set up against the opposition. KB saying at City, yeah, let's hope that. Would you have Ortega starting as keeper? No. Ederson should definitely get his starting spot. But I totally agree he was very good in terms of shot stopping there, 100%. Pooh being the best in the world. Again, I don't watch enough La Liga. I watched the start of La Liga, and this is what I will say. This is what I will say on Bellingham, because I watched sort of like the first, I think, 4 or 5 games of Real Madrid season in the league. I can't remember the games. Like, one was against Bilbao when he scored twice. I think basically every game he got a goal. It was like, whatever. What I will say is, if that 5-game period is a reflection of his performances across the whole season, I'm not impressed. Or certainly not as impressed as others have been. And against Bilbao, for example, he scored 2 goals. I don't think it was that good. I thought it was all right. But, people wouldn't have watched that game and gone, yeah, 10 out of 10 from Bellingham. It's like, it's all right. But they were pretty fortunate goals. It wasn't even a case of right place, right time. One of them was the most ridiculous bump and bounce deflected effort I've ever seen. So if that's a window into how he's played all season, then I think you could definitely make a case that Foden's been better. If we're making the case that Bellingham is the best because he's getting all the goals and assists, I think Foden's nearly got as many. In fair, I'm not trying to say that Foden's been better than him this season, but I am saying that if your argument is goals and assists, Foden's got nearly as many. I think he's only 2 behind him. I know he's played more games, but that's irrelevant if your only point is goals and assists. So it will probably come I know this is totally changed topics. If we're talking about the Ballon d'Or, and stick around, guys, because I'm going to give you a really interesting bit of information. So I was having this conversation with young William in our Discord server. So, because I like to annoy Will by suggesting that Foden's going to win the Ballon d'Or. Basically, I was making the point that the Ballon d'Or is not about right or wrong. It's about what journalists think is right. We all know that Haaland was the best player in the world last season. Irrelevant. Messi won the World Cup. We all know that probably Thierry Henry was like the best player in 2006. Irrelevant. Cannavaro won the World Cup. You could even say like 2003. We all knew Henry was the best player in the world. Irrelevant. I think Nedved, did he win the Champions League or got to the final, whatever. Yeah. We all, yeah. There are many examples of that. So the Ballon d'Or isn't about who deserves it. It's about who's got the highest honours. So I was making the point that if City win the Champions League, and by extension, therefore, Bellingham would get knocked out in the quarters, Bellingham isn't making that podium, and Foden is. That was my argument. And let me give you some data which corroborates that statement. So I went back and looked at like every single Ballon d'Or top 3 like podium from the past like 20 or so years. And the way it's skewed, and maybe this isn't even the case about Phil Foden, but my point was, if Foden is seen as City's best player and City win the Champions League, so those things happen. The last time a Ballon d'Or top 3 didn't feature a Champions League finalist was 2012. The last time a Ballon d'Or top 3 didn't feature a Champions League semi-finalist was 2002, and that's when it was dominated by World Cup players. In terms of players who made the podium and got knocked out before the semis of the Champions League, the last time that happened, in fact, can anyone predict? So I looked at the last 20 years worth of Ballon d'Ors. So this is talking about the fact that, assuming Bellingham gets knocked out in the quarters, when was the last year of the last 20 years, do you guys think a player made the podium of the Ballon d'Or but got knocked out before the semi-finals? So the quarterfinals or before. When was the last time that happened? Actually, there are some mitigating circumstances. Them winning the World Cup / Euros, your name being Messi, Ronaldo, or Neymar, or Lewandowski having that ridiculous record-breaking season. Those are the mitigating factors, in fairness. The last time that happened, guys, was 2004. So history tells us that if you don't get past the quarterfinals of the Champions League, you are not making that top 3 unless you win the Euros or the World Cup, or you break Gerd Muller's Bundesliga goal-scoring record, or, as I say, your name is Messi, Ronaldo, or Neymar. So it's basically not going to happen, was my sort of argument. Yeah. That was just a little slight diversion with the Ballon d'Or. Bellingham's dropped off after an amazing start at Abbas. The goals certainly have. Palmer's, that's surely not true. Surely not. Phone's one less. Is that true? Wow. Phone's constantly playing against tougher opponents than Bellingham. As a sniper, that's an interesting take. We all know Messi's going to win it. Can you imagine? In the summer, Nova. Akanji Ballon d'Or's left the station. Well, and that's the thing. Look, that's the difference maker, isn't it? If England win the Euros or they get to the final, then it's a totally different question, because the Ballon d'Or is totally weighted to the Champions League, the World Cup, and the Euros, or the Copa America, or whatever. That's what it's based on. Realistically, it's not, the league is basically irrelevant. So if all Bellingham has at the end of the season is La Liga, he ain't winning Ballon d'Or. Based on history, anyway, it would be a massive history changer if that happened. Jude's the perfect Real Madrid player. Most Real Madrid fans don't watch the matches, but he gets the goals. Yeah, and look, this isn't like Bellingham slander at all, but the games I have seen of him, I don't claim to watch every single La Liga game, as I've only watched like the first 4 or 5 of the season. I've not been blown away. Foden's been better from the games I have watched. I'm not saying that means Foden's been better. I'm saying of the games I've watched of Bellingham, Foden's been better. And it's actually not really close. To be fair, it's actually not really that close. Hello, Matt Hatter. Man U fan, Liverpool fans today, I'm holding nose rooting for United. It's a hard one, isn't it, Matt Hatter? It is a really tricky one. Who would you rather have the prospect of winning a cup? United or Liverpool? You could say, well, we want the weaker opponent. It's in our hands. So I guess that's the way to look at it, isn't it? So with that in mind, I guess United, probably. And I know, Musty. I know. Yeah, I'm dubious as to how many games Will has watched in La Liga. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not sure how many he's watched. We'll be prepared for Bellingham. Grealish will get him booked. Yeah, isn't it Vinicius, Bellingham, Tchouaméni, and there's one more, I'm sure. Is it Camavinga? I don't know. But if we can get Tchouaméni booked and out of the second leg, that is mental, because they've had a lot of centre-half issues this season, and Tchouaméni has filled in for them quite a lot. So if we can get rid of him, that's a two-pronged thing. That would be massive. I think it's safe to say, maybe I'll end it here, because we have been going for over an hour here. We've still got over 100 people here, which is brilliant. Please make sure to leave a like on the stream. I think this will be some of my last point. I will be on LB's channel at 1 o'clock, so make sure to go. I'm sure you guys are already following, but if you aren't already, go over there. We're going to be talking about the Newcastle game and much more, I'm sure. So that's my sort of thoughts on what you should be doing now. What was I saying? If we can get those players booked, that would be insane. That's definitely something that we've got to be looking at doing, to be honest. And just on, maybe just like on Real Madrid. I know they're going to win La Liga this season, but they are, I think they're probably maybe a bit weaker compared to last season or the season prior, partly due to personnel changes, but also injuries as well. Do you guys remember how insane Courtois was last year? People talk about how Haaland didn't get a goal in the semi-finals. Haaland should have had like 3 nailed-on goals in that home leg, but for ridiculous saves by Courtois. So he's not going to be there. He also saved them in the He also saved them the season where they knocked us out as well. Like Grealish, what should have been like that, the tie-winning goal, ridiculous save by Courtois. He's not going to be available. I've touched on like the injury issues in respect of their defense. That might be compounded with suspension issues. They still don't really have a proper striker. They're playing like this weird sort of like Vinicius and Rodrigo are sort of like the strikers. It's all very fluid and nice, but it's certainly not ideal. Like, a team with a striker is better than a team without one. That's for sure. I think it probably is a weaker Real Madrid side. You could say we're weaker as well. It's absolutely fine. But we should be looking to win this tie reasonably well. I'm not saying we're going to go to the Bernabeu and beat them or batter them, but we should be confident, I think. I think I touched on this in like yesterday's watch-along. If you don't join us for our watch-alongs, by the way, what are you doing? Come join our watch-alongs. Turn on alerts so you know whenever we go live. I forgot what I was saying. I'm so bad at that, man. I always forget what I'm trying to say. What was I saying? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They should fear us more than we should fear them. Definitely. I think Real Madrid fans will be really upset that they drew City. Obviously, City fans can be, scared, whatever the word is. I think Real Madrid fans will be very, very annoyed. They'll be very annoyed. In fact, like I saw something from Opta, statistically, City had the hardest draw they could get, but Real Madrid got a harder one because obviously they got us and City can't face us. Modric is not the GOAT. No, Messi is, mate. Indeed. Madrid have been. That's a bold statement. It could happen. Stranger things have happened, but I'm not sure about that. Don't want to face Liverpool. I don't want to hear the nauseating media love of United making history or whatever. Yeah, well. So if we beat them, it's a thing. I'm delusional. Well, I'm not delusional for thinking Modric isn't as good as Messi, to be honest. I don't understand what's happened here. I don't know what's happened here, Josh. Chris Rodri isn't in the conversation. He could get 10 out of 10 GA and we'd be unbeaten if we had him in every game. And again, I think Rodri's been our most important player, but not our best. No watch along today because I've got a family function. Josh, if you think that Modric is the GOAT, then that's on you. I don't know what to say. If you want to think that, you go for it. You run with that, mate. I respect it. I personally am not going to say he's the GOAT. Me personally, you guys don't have to agree. Prefer to take on the Rags than Liverpool, says Matt Hattett. Yeah, I mean, they are a much weaker side, in fairness. But I would rather lose to Liverpool than United. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? It won't reverse, Kundan. That's been confirmed. The fixtures have been set. And this is something I forgot. Like, there was a year where we played Real Madrid and Chelsea played Atletico Madrid. And, no, sorry, we played Atletico and Chelsea played Real Madrid, and they were back-to-back days. So it's that was a whole nonsense thing, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this Modric is the GOAT thing has come from. I'm very, very confused there. Modric is a very good player, but he's not the GOAT at all. Isn't it better to be the more important player? It depends how you view things, Cameron. I guess that's why. I would like to. I don't know what the situation is in basketball. I like the wording of MVP because that's most valuable player. Oh, it's just another word for important, isn't it? The best player isn't necessarily the most valuable player. So I think in football we should have two awards. We should have player of the season for the best player. But we should also have the most valuable player. So, for example, you could make a very strong argument that Ross Barkley is the most valuable player in the Premier League because of the value he offers Luton. I think that would be a really interesting award to add into football, like MVP, because the point being, it's not how good the player is, it's how valuable that player is to their team in that context. So if a player single-handedly keeps a team up from relegation, then that player could win MVP. And that just might be a nice way of rewarding players who wouldn't get a look in terms of player of the season because obviously they're not, the best player. Not better than Messi. So I don't know what he's saying then, Josh. Were you not saying that he's the GOAT? So he's not the GOAT. He's not better than Messi. He's not better than Ronaldo. He's not better than a number of players. So, like, I'm so perplexed. Pickford would win MVP. And that would be a really interesting... That would make awards so much more interesting, wouldn't it? Because, again, you're rewarding players who wouldn't normally get a look in. I don't... But okay, Josh, let's reset. What is it you are saying about Modric? Because what I understood was you were saying he's the best player. So let's reset. Start again. What were you saying about... What is your point about Modric? Let's start from a net neutral perspective. I'm not saying anything about Modric. You've not said anything about Modric yet. What is your opening gambit, RE Luka Modric? Let me know. Yeah, I'd love all that. Yeah, most defensive player of the year is really good. I like that. MVP and NBA, they just award to the player with the best stats. Well, if that is what they do, that's not good. But you see my point on the concept. I like the concept of it. I mean, I'm very new to basketball, so I don't know how it works. I don't know the history of the awards. But if the idea, the concept of it is the most valuable, then that is what I would like to see. Because again, then you have all these other storylines. Again, best defensive player of the year is a really interesting one to do. Modric or De Bruyne? Sorry, is this a real question? I don't know what that is now. Josh, yeah, I don't know. Disrespect on Modric. Give me an example of this disrespect. If you're saying it's disrespectful to say De Bruyne is better, then that is silly, to be honest. If you're saying it's disrespectful to say Modric is bad, then I agree, because he's not bad. Hello, Sponge. I know I keep saying I'm going to end this stream, but I'm enjoying these questions. Where do you think De Bruyne should be playing against Madrid? Pep stuck him in the big games last season. Behind Haaland, now that players like Foden's performing, where would you put him? Depends on the game, but in general, I think I want to see him in the middle, Foden on the right, lots of nice fluid interchange, as we saw against Newcastle, or against United on the left. That's what I want to see. Someone says washed. Well, he's not washed, is he? But he's certainly not the player he used to be. And he certainly doesn't start. Well, actually, I might be about to say wrong. I'm going to make a statement, and I think it's correct. He doesn't start for Real Madrid consistently. He's not. If Real Madrid had everyone fit, he doesn't start. Someone can correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure that he does not make their starting midfield if everyone is fit. So that's not the same as he's washed, but as I say, he doesn't start for his own team. That doesn't mean he's washed, but he doesn't start for his own team. There's no disrespect, just neutral fans don't talk about him like David Silva's not talked about. Yeah, Modric is good, but again, he's not Kevin De Bruyne. Yes, Herbal I am, mate. We'll be there at 1 o'clock. We will be there. We will be there. And you will be there too. Yeah, so he doesn't start for Real Madrid. Yeah, so I was correct in that statement. Again, that doesn't mean he's washed. That doesn't mean he's bad. That doesn't mean he was bad. But he's not like the level of De Bruyne, obviously. He's not the level of the other midfielders currently. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's a very good player. But I'm not going to say he was as good as Iniesta or Xavi or Pirlo or De Bruyne. I don't think it's just disrespectful to say he's not as good as those players. You guys can disagree if you want, that's fine. But to say it's disrespectful, I think is a bit silly, to be honest. If we're saying that those players I've just listed are at table 1, then I think that Modric is at table 2, or again, whatever thing you want to do. That's another video for a whole nother day. Let me know, by the way, guys, because this post-mortem is basically just descended into sort of like a Q&A thing. Would you guys sort of like weekly Q&As? I don't know, where we just chat about all different topics. Not necessarily City, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be anything currently going on in the world. It could be like what we're doing now with the whole Modric situation. Let me know, and I can certainly do that if you would like that. We can maybe do like one a week or something. I don't know when. Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't just be a post-mortem. It can be literally anything, as we're doing right now. You know, Modric or De Bruyne, fucking Beckham or Figo, whatever. Or what do you make of like what's happened in football this week or generally that sort of thing. So yeah, we can do that. We can do that. I've got no experience of it, I'm afraid. I've got no experience of it. Musty, what the hell? Right, guys, I'm going to head off. We've been speaking for like an hour and... What is that? An hour? What time did we start? Hour 15? I don't know. Too long, guys. Thank you. What the hell? Why do you have to pick? Why not both? You get me? We're going to go on a date when it's the international break because we live relatively near each other. Yeah, that'll be cute. Yeah, 100%, Josh. 100%. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. As I say, on a stream which started in the morning, just for an FA Cup game. You guys have spoken. We will add Q&As. I'll try to think of what day/time they would be most appropriate for them. I'll try to think of a catchy title for them. I'm going to be in LB's channel in 30 minutes. So go over to LB's channel at 1 o'clock. We're going to talk about the Newcastle game and much more. If you aren't already following, what are you doing? If you want to go the extra mile, you can do. Become an Ultra, a channel member. The link is in a pinned comment at the top if you would like to. You don't have to, but if you can, that would be a beautiful time had by all. Until next time, guys, which will be next week. I actually don't know when the next stream will be. Make sure your notifications are on. I will see you all then. Have a lovely rest of your evening. I'll see you all later on LB's channel at 1. Goodbye, guys.